Pokemon has been a staple of my passion for handheld gaming since the launch of Red and Blue back in 1998. Personally, I consider Pokemon Red to be among my favorite games of all time, and I can't count how many times I've replayed it throughout the years or how many hours I've poured into it altogether. More recently, after the Pokemon Go explosion in 2016, my passion for Pokemon was reignited, and this led me to obsess over newer titles like Ultra Sun and Moon, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, as well as Pokemon Sword and Shield. But with the continuation of the modern Switch releases, I eventually felt a sort of burnout on Pokemon. While I had a lot of fun going through games like Brilliant Diamond, Legends Arceus, and Pokemon Scarlet, I just felt like something wasn't clicking for me the same. Maybe it's the unavoidable controversy in the development and graphical quality of these games, or maybe it's the interest in spending time playing games in other franchises or diving into my backlog of unplayed retro games. Either way, my long-running Pokemon passion was beginning to fade. That's until I started seeing discussions all over social media about a ROM hack that had taken the Pokemon community by storm. If you don't know what a ROM hack is, think of it as a remix to a familiar song. In most cases, gaming fanatics with developer skills and knowledge utilize the assets and code to a game, finding ways to change or add content, resulting in a new version of an existing game. In some cases, those assets and code are used to create a new game entirely. Enter Pokemon Unbound. Pokemon Unbound is a game developed for Game Boy Advance software, but with the look and sound of Nintendo DS Pokemon games like Diamond and Pearl. Unbound was made by a Pokemon fan named Skelly with the help from several other developers in the ROM hacking scene and has been available for a few years now. So let's talk about the game itself. If you hop over to the main Pokemon Unbound homepage, the story section reads, "Welcome to Boreas, a region rich with history. Centuries ago, the Borean people were enveloped in a great war with a foreign land. When all seemed lost, the Borean king summoned a powerful force to help turn the tide of battle. Unfortunately, the war ended in defeat when the king of the foreign land unleashed a devastating weapon. Disgruntled, the Borean army returned home. The people, now enraged against the Borean king, attempted a coup by manipulating the dark force summoned during the war. The Borean king was able to seal away its power, however, and the coup was thwarted. Many years later, an organization simply known as the Shadows seems bent on releasing the Dark Force once again. Are they after the destruction of the Boreas region, or is there something else at play? It's up to you to stand in their way." I think that's a perfect synopsis of the game, but to me, its hype lies around the magnitude of content and quality of life features it provides from beginning to end, and that's what I'd like the emphasis of this video to be on. I had previously touched on this game mimicking the look and sound of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, so if you're a fan of the DS era, then I can already tell you you're in for a treat. The game opens with an extended cutscene setting up the premise, and from there, the first awesome feature presents itself: character customization. Over time, this is something that we have seen evolve in Pokemon games, but it is never quite offered in great detail. Here, you'll get to decide your look and outfit color to your liking. Later on, you'll even acquire costumes that can be accessed in your costume box. In a different spin than your typical Pokemon journey, you find yourself in a mysterious warehouse. After encountering a cage-filled area, you meet your starter choices: Beldum, Larvitar, and Gible. This is an awesome element to the start because normally your Pokemon partner options are not pseudo-legendaries like these, and furthermore, these are three whose third stage have access to Mega Evolution. More on that in a moment. Instead of embarking on your playthrough from a basic, simple town, Pokemon Unbound establishes your origins in a snowy mountain town. You won't see any rodents and birds along the early routes, but rather snowy region Pokemon like Alolan Sandshrew and Vanillite. As I just alluded to, this game features regional Pokemon as well as their original forms. Speaking to the Pokedex, you can find Pokemon all the way up to the Galar region, including their Galarian forms, even Hisui forms from Legends Arceus. One of my favorite things regarding the Pokemon and their art style is the fact that this is a DS-era designed game, yet we have superb pixel art from the 3D-era Pokemon featured in X and Y and beyond. So there was a strong effort to include demake elements to Pokemon Unbound, which is very cool. Speaking of demake elements, on top of the traditional Pokemon turn-based battling, there's also battle mechanics from the 3D-era games: Mega Evolutions, Z-moves, and Dynamaxing, as well as double battles. During your playthrough, you will unlock these mechanics as part of your story progression, and the game does a great job at teaching you how they work in this smaller scale Pokemon game. When it comes to training your Pokemon, TMs, move tutors, and egg moves are also here. The TM and HM system are also well optimized like in newer Pokemon games. TMs are reusable once acquired, and HMs can be used by the Pokemon that can learn them without actually having them in their current moveset. This makes traversing with techniques like Surf and Cut very easy, and your Pokemon can continue to be properly tuned for battle. You may be familiar with the XP share feature that is present and can be toggled on or off at any time. Taking on gyms can provide an interesting challenge as they have new gimmicks that are a step up from the legitimate Pokemon games, but they also feel more clever in their puzzles. I managed to play through Unbound twice before making this review, and on my first playthrough I kept things simple on the vanilla difficulty. This is recommended for players who would like to enjoy the game casually and not stress over tough battles. However, I appreciate that this is something you can change on the fly in the menu. On the second time around, I went for expert difficulty and definitely noticed a difference in most of the boss battles. Speaking of tough battles, for the competitive type of player, there's a house early on in Dresco Town where you can find multiple trainers based on typing, and this is essentially a method of more streamlined EV training, not to mention the XP you get by default. And the NPC there can heal your Pokemon on the spot and also allow you to re-enter to reset the battles instantly so you can do some quick training if need be. Anytime you see this overworld Porygon, that's this game's version of Bill's PC, so you can make party changes without having to visit the Pokemon Center. While out and about, I like that you can move a lower positioned Pokemon in your party to the front simply by pressing select, or press L to swap two Pokemon with each other. A major element to this game for me was level scaling, and I wish all Pokemon games had it to this degree. If you come back to a trainer that you evaded early on, the trainer's Pokemon levels will be in line with yours. Very helpful for more worthwhile XP gaining. The game settings in the menu contain several shortcuts for convenience. For example, you can assign the L and R button to be set to certain functions like auto run or opening your mission log, party, or items. This is incredibly handy. If you recall in Generation 2 and on, you could use the select button to set a function like using your bike for example. Here you can set multiple functions to the L button, which then offers secondary button options for quicker access. A quick run through of other settings or shortcuts I enjoyed include pressing R to run from a wild encounter, assign a button to your last used Pokeball, frequent save prompts to better ensure you don't lose your progress, and assigning tracks based on scenario. Speaking of music, the Pokemon Unbound soundtrack has around 180 tunes included. What's really cool is you can visit the soundtrack's SoundCloud page to listen to or even buy the album. A huge part of my enjoyment in this game is the inclusion of a quest log, and quests in general. There are 80 plus side quests you can acquire from NPCs throughout Boreas, and once you do, they will appear in the menu, in addition to your main story quest. Some of these can be a bit laborious too, requiring a lot of time and effort. That can be a good or bad thing depending on how you want to look at it. However, they are not required to beat the game. Personally, I appreciated the thrill of something like hunting down all of the Zygarde cells after speaking to an NPC in Dresco Town. This is something you can chip away at throughout all of your travels as they appear just about anywhere. I don't view this game as the type that holds your hand, but it is nice to open up the map and spot a waypoint related to your active main story quest. Pokemon Unbound eliminates the hassle of bag management as it provides you with unlimited storage so you can carry everything that you find. TMs and berries get their own storage within the bag menu as well. You can also set the bag to auto-sort by type or name, which is convenient. I previously stated that side quests aren't required to finish the game, but I would be remiss if I didn't highlight how rewarding some of them are to complete. A few of the game's best items can be obtained from side quest NPCs. For example, the Porta PC is basically PC access on the go, wherever you are, and this includes a heal all button. The Time Turner grants you the ability to switch from day to night, which is useful for certain evolutions or catching certain Pokemon. The ADM is an item that gives you access to HMs without needing Pokemon that learn them to be in your party, as well as digging in the expressway tunnels for prized items. There's even an NPC that will allow you to convert one of your Pokemon into its shiny form by collecting enough battle points. DexNav is a major menu item that's a game changer. Once you have it, you can hunt for Pokemon much easier by selecting one and following the overworld encounter animation. This is incredibly useful for shiny hunting, wild item hunting, or even encountering your selected Pokemon with better IVs or egg moves. I really love this. Gift Pokemon are also a thing here. There are some mystery gift codes floating around that you can enter to obtain special Pokemon that aren't found in the Boreas region. After you finish the game, a New Game Plus option will appear in the menu, which is amazing simply because Pokemon games do not offer this. You can carry up to 6 Pokemon into a New Game Plus file as well as a few of the game's special items. Speaking of completion, I learned about a few things that I didn't quite have enough time to experience, and one of those things is called the Black Card. For the really ambitious trainer, if you complete everything there is to do, you can get rewarded a black card in-game. Aside from bragging rights, this also comes with the stat scanner item that can manually edit Pokemon stats. I might have to aim for this over time as it's definitely not an easy undertaking, but still something fun to strive for. There's also an online service called the Unbound Cloud, which is wild to me. This game was enjoyed enough that someone developed a storage cloud for your unbound Pokemon, just like having Pokemon Home. They really thought of everything. Before I wrap up, I'd like to talk about my absolute favorite element of Pokemon Unbound, and that's Sandbox mode. At the start of the game, you can select Sandbox mode in the playthrough settings menu. On my second playthrough, I really wanted to check this out, and I was not disappointed. Pokemon regulars know the potential for grinding in a lot of the older Pokemon handheld games. At times, this can feel like a chore, having to repeat wild encounters over and over just to get your Pokemon levels higher. Sandbox mode eliminates that. Instead, you will have the ability to manually respec your Pokemon where you see fit. This includes IVs, EVs, nature, gender, ability, hidden power, level, and moveset. You can also use this to manually evolve any Pokemon. It's a great time saver if you just want to get through the game without all the extra hours spent training. This also makes it easy to swap new Pokemon into your party and have them battle ready almost immediately. And in regards to that, the wild Pokemon catch rate is automatically set to 100% so you won't be wasting your Pokeballs and even more time on the hunt. While those are all terrific pros, there are a few cons. After the game ends, there is almost no post-game unfortunately outside of the Battle Tower. And since most of the legendary encounters are available after the main story, you will not be able to obtain many of them. So if that's a deal breaker for you, definitely avoid Sandbox mode, since it cannot be changed mid-game. So I just went over a ton of gameplay elements in Pokemon Unbound that to me really make it feel like the ultimate Pokemon game. Skelly's initiative to take the most beloved features from all of the Pokemon games and combine them into one experience is just phenomenal. And with the amount of content packed into it, you could pour dozens or even hundreds of hours into your playthrough during and after the main campaign. Not only that, but just seeing the love and care that the team put into such a project over years based on all the updates just shows how passionate they really are about it. While I have finished the main story a few times, I look forward to completing everything for a long time. It feels like a forever kind of game, and the impression this made on me also has me extremely curious about other ROM hacks out there that I would enjoy. Since this is after all a ROM hack, there's no official release, and therefore it's up to you to decide how and where you want to play it. I've briefly covered unofficial ways to play GBA games on my channel, ranging from the Analog Pocket to handheld emulators like the RGXX35SP. I'd highly recommend giving this a try via something like that. Not to mention having access to Delta for iOS. You can play this in high quality on your phone. Having those emulators gives you the benefit of save states and fast forwarding, which makes pick up and play so simple these days. There are a ton of resources to Pokemon Unbound, starting with the homepage, which I'll leave a link to in the description. There you will learn how to get a copy for yourself. There's also a handful of spreadsheets with useful information about the game that I found myself constantly revisiting, as well as a nice wiki. I'm super grateful I stumbled upon this Pokemon game and gave it a legitimate try. It's basically becoming my all-time favorite Pokemon game, and I haven't even done all there is to do yet. Don't let the thought of playing something old discourage you either. There are so many retro-inspired games being made nowadays, and it's easy to see how mid-2000s Pokemon games have been a big influence. Recent releases like Cassette Beasts and Moonstone Island have caught my eye because they seem to capture that same Nintendo DS top-down pixel art charm emanating from entries like Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire through Black and White. I know I didn't cover every single thing, but I hope I have shown off enough of Pokemon Unbound to inspire more gamers to play it. I truly don't think you'll be disappointed no matter how deeply you dive into it. And if you do, come back here and let me know what you thought in the comments. And if you have played it, I want to know if you enjoyed it as much as I did. This video was a bit of a departure from what I have been doing on my channel, but I thoroughly enjoyed doing it and I can't wait to do more. Thanks for watching.